We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 folks online. So we have 8 people, which I feel like is a critical mass to start a public meeting. So normally I would get up and stand by the podium and welcome everybody. And actually I'll just turn on my camera for this. I'm sure some of you have been here. We were just looking at the project original project definition documents this morning, and saw that it was actually the first public meeting for this project was held in 2014. And it was, the concept was developed, and these guys will go through it shortly after that. Just wanted to thank you guys for sticking with it if you were here then, and welcome you if you were not. So recently, the city, last year, so 2021, the city brought VHB on to finish the second phase of the project. We had finally obtained the right-of-way for across private property to connect the park to both Garden Street and Market Street. So we engaged VHB to work on that project. It's pretty straightforward and still complex because it crosses wetlands, and there's a lot of things to be careful about. So they're going to show you the work that they've done so far. We're sort of at the 60%, and it is not like a concept design meeting in that we're not doing a big tell us everything that we can do here, because we are fairly along in the design, but at the same time we always welcome comments and appreciate input. So thank you. Dan and Mike.
Hello. All right. Thank you all for joining us here in person and online. Went too far. So Alana already went through some of the project history. Again, this project started in 2014, and a majority of the project definition and public outreach and participation happened in that 2015 timeframe. There were some site walks. There was public meetings to sort of get stakeholder input on the project itself. And then phase 1, which is the former Duma parcel, was completed in 2018. It's that 7.65 parcel. It's sort of highlighted in this orange graphic here. So it's sort of this passive, SurePack aggregate trail network throughout the parcel that connects Barrett Street and Ivy Street to the park. But one thing it doesn't do is provide that north-south connection to Garden Street and Market Street, and to other facilities, the city center area, and to other multimodal facilities, within the area. And that's what this project is looking to do as part of this project. We're calling this the Boardwalk connection, but there's a little bit more to it than that. It's not just boardwalks. There's going to be some paved paths. There's going to be and then the connection to the former Duma parcel park. Another aspect of this project will be to, like we said, connect Garden Street and Market Street, but also look to sort of incorporate and sort of bring the public into sort of the stormwater treatment facilities that were designed for the Market Street work and the future build out of Garden Street. Both of those ponds have some amenities, some features that want to be highlighted, and hopefully with the incorporation of this connection, we can sort of bring those to the limelight. So this is the purpose of the project that was defined by the city's planning commission. I'm not going to go over this. This can be found on the city's website. This is also part of the project definition report, but it's basically just summarizes that the purpose of the project was to establish sort of a passive trail system in a park system within the city center that could be utilized by local residents and sort of enhance and some of the natural aesthetics of the area. And this map sort of highlights some of the additional multimodal facilities within the area. Highlighted in the red dash is the project location. You can see the connection between Barrett and City Center Park. Oh, wrong button. Went too far. It's very touchy. Okay, sorry about that. So you can see that there's already multimodal facilities on Market Street and Dorset. There's sidewalk connections on Barrett and Ivy through those residential neighborhoods. So this project will sort of establish that north-south connection between City Center Park, the residents in Ivy and Barrett, and connect them to Market Street and Garden Street. And this is our overview map of the proposed improvements. So there's a few facets of this project. So there's a connection from the City Center Park, the Dumont parcel, to Garden Street and Market Street. But there's also components of we're gonna pave a section of the path from Barrett, which starts at D and goes up to B. So that's an existing trail network that was constructed as part of phase 1. This project, phase 2, will look to pave that piece, and while we're establishing that boardwalk connection piece. This project also shows sort of the proposed development that is going to happen on Garden Street, adjacent to the existing stormwater treatment pond, up here near C. And then B is the highlighted area. B is the area where we'll establish the connection from the Dumont parcel. And then A, this is Market Street. And there's going to be, and then we'll establish the connection off the existing maintenance road / multimodal facility that terminates at the bottom of the pond. And Mike will go over what we're starting to look to do at those A, B, and C, D locations. One of the other things I wanted to highlight was we're calling this, like I said, this is the boardwalk connection, but there is a fair amount of paved path through here. We're proposing a 10-foot wide path for most of it, except for around the Garden Street existing stormwater treatment facility. That will be an 8-foot wide path because based on the limited right-of-way that we got for around that area. Like Alana said, this project does go through an existing private property, but the city acquired a permanent easement to install this project. For most locations, it's a 20-foot wide permanent easement. Around the stormwater pond, Garden Street, it's a 15-foot wide permanent easement. The boardwalks will be proposed over the. Try that. The boardwalks you see highlighted in the light brown are the proposed locations of the boardwalk, and those are to essentially go over the existing wetlands. It's a large class 2 wetland that will be installed elevated above the wetland, and we'll go over some more detail about that a little bit later. Are there any questions? And I'll hand over to Mike.
Thanks, Dan. Just to go back to the plan that Dan had up here earlier. So these nodes, A, B, C, and D, these were sort of the major sort of connection points that we saw that were happening where, you're connecting to Garden Street, Market, down to Barrett, and then the intersection of this new proposed path that's going to connect to City Center Park. So recognizing these are sort of key areas where you're going to look for sort of amenities to happen. And so what we're looking at each of these areas is taking an inventory of what's there today and then identifying sort of amenities that we might want to see added. So here, this location A, so this is the existing City Center Park piece that was done when Market Street was constructed. So it's the existing stormwater facility. And so there's already sort of pedestrian amenities there. There's the pull-off little pocket park place. There's some lighting. benches for seating. There's the sculptures that was done, the gooses. And so that's all there today. And some of the amenities we were looking to add here is really looking at signage and wayfinding. So it would be adding a kiosk and sort of a park ID sign. And the idea with this kiosk is, you arrive at this spot, it's a decision point. Where am I going? How can I get to X, Y, and Z? And so there'd be a park plan map that shows all the sort of network and trails around and surrounding. So it really lead you around and show you where you can go from here. So those are the amenities we're adding here. Really is really about the park kiosk sign and the park ID sign. Location B, so this is where the new park path sort of comes through and sort of intersects with the existing Dumont Park / City Center Park now. So at this location, we were looking at exploring ideas to add bike racks, benches, and again, a new park kiosk map. Again, so you can sort of find your way around and understand where you can go. So if you head east versus west, where that's going to take you. These detailed plans you can sort of see there's, as Dan described, the elevated boardwalk versus where we're sort of an at-grade paved path. So we're crossing over the wetlands, that sort of bluish green space, that will be the elevated boardwalk portion. So location C, so this is coming up to Garden Street intersection. On this plan, you can see we have inserted, there's a proposed development immediately adjacent to the east on the other side of the existing stormwater treatment facility that's there today. And so this path network is going to sort of, work its way around that parcel and stay on the west side of the existing stormwater ponds. And interestingly is that part of this proposed development, they've already have like a little pocket park planned here. So it's sort of very similar to what's over at Market Street. So there will be some lighting, benches, bike racks. And so we're going to supplement that with some additional bike racks. And then again, a park kiosk sign just for wayfinding and sense of direction around that space. So moving down south, looking at Barrett Street, so this is really highlighting what's there today. And so you've got there's a park, one of the large park kiosk signs with the overhead cover, and it's a two-sided piece. So you have the park map, and then on the back side, there's sort of a highlight of flora and fauna within the park. So that's sort of like an interpretive panel that's there. And then there's some existing bike racks. So currently we're not proposing to add any new amenities here, just highlighting really what's there today. Moving back over to the Garden Street intersection, working with the library, there's interest to add a storybook walk along this edge of the path. So this would be sort of like, the interpretive piece, and it's still, I think, up for debate what's going to happen there. The library is still exploring ideas, working with the city about what that would be, but it's a great opportunity for sort of pulling the kids through, getting them into nature, communication, encourage reading. So it's a fun opportunity and a fun element to add to the project. So again, that's still being explored, what that will ultimately be, how far it will go down the path. But this is the general location of where everyone's looking to introduce this element. So along the entire length of the path and the boardwalk areas, we're going to introduce lighting. And so the idea here is the key is it's going to be low level. We'll be using dark sky compliant lighting, and the idea is to sort of do pools of light along the path that sort of draw you through the space. And so these are sort of representative images of sort of the context of what you could expect to see on the boardwalk lighting and along the path. So it'd be some bollards and then probably some lighting built into the post or rail system where you were elevated boardwalk over the water. And so Dan's going to talk about where paved paths happening, boardwalks, and what the engineering drawings look like.
Right, we've already gone over some of this already, but just sort of highlight the sort of the key components of the project. Like we mentioned before, this is a paved path, even though we're calling it a boardwalk connection, phase 2. The boardwalk piece is only a small section to get us over wetlands to minimize impacts to those important natural features. So the paved path begins right off the existing Market Street paved section. As soon as we encroach the wetland, we'll install this elevated boardwalk. Immediately we get back to at grade, and we'll install a paved piece sort of centered around B, and then the connection to the city center park will be paved as well. Currently, there is a trail out there today. It's a SurePack gravel about 10 feet wide. So this project will just look to sort of fine grade that area and then just apply some asphalt. Heading west, we encroach the wetland again. So we require to install sort of that elevated boardwalk again. And then once we get around this corner here, we go back to paved. This is the area where the path gets a little bit narrow. It's 8 feet wide through this section, and we essentially wrap around the existing stormwater pond and tie into the Garden Street future multimodal. I believe there's a dedicated sidewalk as well as a cycle track or dedicated bike lane along that section. So this project will look to connect to those two pieces as well. And this is basically the typical section for the elevated boardwalk. Sort of the pictures on the left sort of highlight some of the ideas that we're looking at exploring at for railing type and then for the planks themselves. The boardwalk itself will be 12 feet wide through the section. There's plenty of opportunity for people to sort of walk or bike through the boardwalk while maybe there's people sort of looking at some of the natural features that are out there as well. So again, so like you can see, we're installing what are called helical piles. These are essentially screwed in, drilled piles that provide the adequate capacity to handle the loads of the boardwalk itself with minimal impacts to the natural wetlands. And these are the typical sections for the paved path itself. So it's basically, like I said, it's a 10-foot wide paved path with grass shoulders. Generally, the grading is relatively flat because we're trying to maintain at grade until we have to elevate to get to the boardwalks. Do we have adequate clearance for our elevated boardwalk superstructure? So some of our slope impacts are very minor. There are areas where we will be a little bit steeper, particularly around the Garden Street pond. Some of those embankments are fairly steep as they're sort of trying to maximize how much volume they could store in such a tight space. So when we go around that area, some of those slopes do get a little bit steeper, and there is an opportunity where we may need some railing to protect users of the path from falling into the pond. Okay, next steps. So we're sort of wrapping up preliminary plans in the very near future. We're still exploring, like I said, some of the materials that will be proposed on the boardwalk. That we're working with the city to sort of identify what some of their maintenance facilities can handle. And also we're concerned about maintenance of the boardwalk itself. There's concern about making sure that it's not slippery for users because it is in a wooded area. So that's some of the things we're exploring at the moment. And then in sort of parallel to us wrapping up preliminary plans is going to be hopefully a public hearing to see if this project can be put on the ballot for the during town meeting day in April, so it can be funded. Final permits, we'll also, once we have our preliminary plans, we'll look to obtain our last round of permits that will be needed for this project. Likely need to update the wetland permit, and then we'll need some construction stormwater and operational stormwater permits as well. And then looking to submit final plans in spring, early summer 2023. It hopes to begin construction middle of next year. Any questions, comments, concerns?
This may be outside of the scope of this project, but it's not that far from point B on here. There was a playground developed in phase one, which is very close to point B within visual line of sight.
Right.
I had spoken to someone a couple of years ago about just two minor things with regards to that playground. One is that there's a ditch in the middle of the playground that accumulates with water seasonally, and there's no fencing around that, which I think is a safety hazard for small children. And my second point was that I was surprised that there were no infant swings put into that playground, because the next closest playground is the elementary school playground, which is quite close, but they all serve a slightly older demographic, but not very small children, and there is space for that. I don't know if there ends up being a budget in this project to make the small improvements a little extended from point B, but that is just something I want to make sure is on people's radar as well.
All right, thank you. Do we need to repeat the question? I'm sorry. For the people online. So there's a concern about some of the existing features within the current city center park. There's some ditching within the area that feels unsafe to some users of the park. So I was wondering if there'd be an opportunity or funding in this project to sort of remediate that issue. Also, look to incorporate swings as part of this project. Infant swings, sorry.
It looks like Donna has a question.
Yes. I think I can even do a camera here. Maybe not. Yes, it is.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can see you.
Yeah, great. Just a couple of questions. One's just a comment. You label the shared use paths as recreation paths. In this area, I think it pays to realize that these will very much be used as commuter routes as well, potentially between the new neighborhoods and city center. Definitely the schools, the middle school and high school to the south, and the elementary school to the north. There are more kids riding their bikes. I don't know about elementary school, but certainly the middle school and high school kids are riding their bikes to school in much greater numbers. So, it's probably helpful to start using shared use path instead of rec path, because that's kind of what the Bike and Ped Committee does. Second, it wasn't clear about the use of bollards. I just want to point out that on constructed boardwalks and things like that, in Winooski, they've had a pretty rough time maintaining the bollards. They kind of get abused, and and it probably, you really want to consider maybe building in more of the lighting into the vertical posts of the fencing and stuff like that, or just make it really totally bulletproof, whatever lighting you put there, because the ones in Winooski really did not hold up very well on the boardwalk that they have along the Winooski River. And just to remember, these will be part of Safe Paths to School. And so they probably, given that this time of year, it's going to soon be dark pretty early. And is there going to be any lighting through from points B to C? Because that's an area through the woods, and just curious as to whether there's any consideration for lighting there.
Yes, there will be lighting throughout the corridor. So the plan currently is to provide that bollard-style lighting within the paved path sections throughout the project limits. There's already conduit and pull boxes installed, or junction boxes along the the B to D location where there's that existing gravel path. So this project, along with installing paving that section of path, will also install lighting through there as well for already installed infrastructure.
Yeah, about how far apart are the bollards going to be?
They are about 50 to 100 feet apart.
Oh, that's not going to give you very much lighting for safety purposes.
I mean,
Bollards really
I'm
give
sorry.
you
I
about
thought
20
you,
feet.
I'm sorry. I thought you said the junction boxes on the Barrett Street piece. There's junction boxes for the conduit that are about 50 to 60. We haven't designed any of the lighting currently.
Okay. So the bollards wouldn't be 50 to 60 feet
Not
apart.
necessarily.
Well, they won't work very well. They need to have something taller if you want to go 50 to 60 feet spacing. Okay, that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick Anderson. Awesome on the lighting, 100% in support. Because yeah, I'm gonna bike home from here right now, and I would use that in the dark if I could.
Great.
One question: I assume we're gonna replace the map on the existing kiosk at Barrett Street to include kind of the greater parcel at some point. Even though you said there was gonna be no changes to the amenities there, I'm hoping we upgrade the map at least to show you can get there from here. And then I assume that when you say the grades are drop off a lot by the stormwater there, that they are, it's the grades on the sides, that it's still ADA grade all the way through this whole path network, right?
So the questions that were asked or commented were, will the map at the kiosk at location D off of Barrett Street, will that be updated to reflect these current improvements? And yes, that will be. That is the plan to make that update. And then the grades, the concern was about the some of the sort of the steep drop-off grades that were mentioned earlier, particularly around the Garden Street Pond. Yes, the path itself will be ADA compliant. We're more concerned about some of the side slopes because the existing stormwater treatment pond they're about 3 to 1, 3 horizontal to 1 vertical slopes, and we're trying to maintain adequate pond storage. So we need to make sure that we stay above their design flood levels for some of their emergency storm events. So that's where we sort of get into those steeper slopes in that area.
And then lastly, or maybe lastly, I love biking all winter, and so we can talk about maintenance. I'm assuming there's been great conversations with DPW around year-round plowing, and I'm just curious about plowing of wooden boardwalk features. Have we done that yet in the city? Is there plowed boardwalks that we have?
Sure. So the question was about winter maintenance, particularly concerns about the boardwalks themselves during the winter time. The plan is to plow this will be an all-season trail network. So we have been working with maintenance and public works to make sure that their maintenance facilities can appropriately make the correct turning movements, particularly at location B, making sure that they can go from Barrett to the boardwalk connection. So we've talked to them about that. So, and then
Humans also don't like taking right angles too, so
they do not.
having good sweeping angles.
So some of the things we're looking at are making sure that some of the amenities that we're putting out there won't get clipped by plow blades. So that's something that we'll certainly look at when we sort of fine tune our design.
Highlight the materials we're exploring.
And then we sort of highlighted it when we showed the boardwalk typical. We're still exploring some options for the boardwalk itself. There are other materials out there. There are concrete plank boards that sort of look like pressure treated wood, but they're made of concrete. So those can certainly accommodate the plow trucks and their blades.
I would highly encourage that this is maybe the time where we invest in a snow plow brush and sweep these boardwalks so they're even clearer than trying to not get really low.
Your lips to God's ears.
I can keep telling you.
I'm sorry? The salt.
It's a wetland.
That we will not be salting the path or the boardwalk, given the location of this path connection and the proximity to the natural resources in the area.
Yeah, added into this budget, right? TID funds can be used for a plow brush.
No equipment. So I don't see any more questions online. I don't know if anyone in the audience has more questions. Any discussion, any comments? This may be our shortest TIF district project meeting ever, which is awesome.
You're welcome.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
So, I saw you said construction begins. Do you have an approximate timeframe for how long?
It would be one season. Yeah.
And like, do you have a sense of like the order that it would be done in, and would the paving of section D to B close the park or that section?
Not necessarily, because there's still the Ivy Street connection, so you can still, get there. So I would imagine that the paving would happen at the very end.
And how long would that put that section out of commission for?
For that one piece, I would estimate a day or two. Yeah, it won't take very long for them to they'll want to get in and out of there for sure. So it should only be a day's worth of work to pave that one piece. Thankfully, I mean, the sub base is already installed. They're really just going to do go in with the machine, sort of regrade it a little bit, and then throw down a couple of layers of asphalt.
Was there discussion about how the junction at B kind of happened? And you've got like the curve and then the straight, and like you've got lots of things. Was there a reason why it wasn't just kind of a straight T with the gravel path coming off the side of the T? Can you go to another slide?
Yeah, sure. Am I going the wrong way? I'm going the wrong way.
If you look at the computer monitor, it'll show you which one you're on.
Almost there.
When I say that, kind of as you think about navigating on a bike, could you clean up that little dog leg connection a little bit more so it was a little easier?
Yeah, that's something that was brought to our attention. I'm sorry. So the question was, can we look into refining the connection, the actual connection piece between the city center park and the phase 2 path, make it easier for users to go from one point to the next. That was brought to our attention. We are currently looking at that. One of the things we're sort of constricted by is again the path itself is on private property, and we have a permanent easement that we're sort of restricted to, that we need to make sure that we stay within.
So you kind of go across to be like a straight shot.
Right. It's a 90-degree from the path straight down to the Barrett Street connection. So, but we are refining it. We'll make it as wide as we can, and we'll have the sweeps to the connection as large as we can.
And so does where you put your bench and your bike racks, is that impacted by that as well, or would they be kind of inside the city center park parcel to avoid easement issues?
So the question was the location of the connection. How would that affect the location of some of the amenities such as benches and the kiosk map? We haven't really laid that out yet. I would imagine that the easement itself on the private property it's fairly wide, so we are looking at sort of pushing the limits of the path to the northernmost edge of the easement, so we can incorporate maybe some of those amenities within the permanent easement itself, utilizing that larger swath of the connection easement piece, and then the path piece itself.
What's not reflected here is the working with Public Works on the turning radiuses for their plows. So this was early conceptual, so it's being revised to accommodate a bigger arc. So this looks sort of very.
Gosh, you want this? There you go.
Just highlighting that what we're seeing on screen here, that B intersection, so that's representative of sort of early conceptual. We had met with Public Works and talked about turning radiuses, so that geometry that you see there is going to be eased even greater to make those turns and swings a lot more gentle. So you can imagine riding your bike, it's going to be a much more gracious sort of curve in. So that's still being worked through.
And Donna has a question online.
Yeah, just keeping on the same image where it says existing wetlands, that's going to be private land. And I'm just curious, how is that going to be maintained? Is that going to be left wild? Is it going to be landscaped? What would one anticipate looking at as you're crossing over this boardwalk and on the new path? Because you don't actually have any control over that.
Yeah. So we anticipate that the wetland area would remain wild. The area close to the stormwater pond, obviously in the development, is anybody's guess at the moment. So it's currently, you can see how they're maintained at the moment, but I think that that's owned by a condominium, so that management plan could develop over time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that, that the city has really no control. Well, I guess if it's going to maintain as wetland, you don't have any control of that either. It just,
Correct.
like, whatever happens, whatever the beavers do.
Yeah, whatever it looks like today, it will not look like in 10 years.
Right. Okay, thanks.
One last question, I promise. Just want to make sure that when we're considering putting benches beside rec paths, I am 1,000% in support of benches, but making sure they kind of set back off the rec path, because typically, and I have been that culprit for many, many years, is when you're walking your kid in the stroller, you sit on the bench and the stroller sits in front of you so you can talk to the kid, and suddenly you've taken up over half the path. So just being very strategic around bench locations just to provide kind of ease of flow.
Thank you.
If I get one more question, we'll make it to 7:15. But I think I'm sure everyone has busy lives, so we can also just close right now. So last chance, seeing no questions or comments, and we'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards too. So thank you everyone for coming, and I appreciate your attention to this project. So we're super excited about it. So it's great to see you here.
And I just wanted to just put up this page. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to Alana or VHB as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.